Welcome back. I'm Amy Jane. This is lesson number 3. We're moving right along with our watercolor, and we're going to dive deeper into color theory. We're learning here how these colors are going to work well with each other, how we're going to be able to use them to create an effect and do what we want. So to begin, you are going to create your very own color wheel. You can use a compass if you've got one, or find a bowl. We just need to create a circle on the page. Our concept today involves complementary colors. Complementary colors are on the opposite side of the color wheel. Your palette might be different than mine, but think of the rainbow and use all the colors that you have to create your very own color wheel. Keep it nice and even, and then we're going to get into mixing those complementary colors together and see what happens. Now let's go back to those primary colors. Start with our red. My good, strong, prominent red is here. I'm going to think about the triangle. I'm going to get some red on there. Just to map this out, I'm going into yellow. Got my lemon yellow. I always do mixing on the palette too. I always bring it over to the palette to see what it is. I'm thinking about the triangle because we want a really good, nice, even color wheel. And I'm going to get myself some yellow to map that yellow in there. Give the brush a cleaning. Here's my Ultramarine Blue. And again, you're using what you have. You're going to find that your palette will adjust and evolve as you evolve as an artist. You're going to want to add colors and discover different colors, but right now we're keeping it simple. We've just got the basic colors. And if you've got whatever you've got and whatever you're using, it's going to work just fine for this learning and for this exercise. So our blue, again, triangular. Because we want this color wheel to be even, you're going to try to make it as accurate a triangle as possible. So now things come in between. Your colors are going to be different, but you're going to use what you have to fill in between along this spectrum of the rainbow. So I go to my next one, which is Naples Yellow. And I'm going to add that next to the lemon. I'm going to kind of try to think about how many spots I have in between. And I'm cleaning my brush in between each one. I've got an Indian yellow. Give it a clean. Again, you're going to have more or less colors, but just use what you have. I've got a raw sienna. These are nice earthy color for when you're wanting to do landscape. And I'm testing all these colors too. This is a good test. This one is very transparent. It doesn't give a strong pigment. It's for transparency, this. I can rub it and rub it and rub it, but it wants to be transparent, my raw sienna. All the colors that you have and all the different types of watercolors and the brands of watercolors, they behave in different ways. This one is burnt sienna. Also very transparent. I tend to want to like really rub to get more pigment onto that, but I just have to realize that it's not designed for that. It's designed to be transparent, to be able to see through it. Great for flesh tones. I'm going to come down here. I have an Indian red and a Scarlet Lake, and I want to sample out my Scarlet Lake. I got to see a demo from a watercolor. He does landscapes and buildings and things, and he swore by Scarlet Lake. So I actually added that one to my palette later. So we've got the colors available to us. yellow to red. I'm sampling, I'm testing, I'm learning about their pigment strength. I'm just following my wheel. We're gonna keep going on to the in-between blue and red side over here. I just barely put on my palette. I got some, it's called Rose. It's like I talked about getting a purple. In order to get a purple, you're going to need to get a magenta pink or a Quinacridone Rose. And that's what I have here, Quinacridone. And I'm going to test. Now this is a fresh paint, so I'm not rubbing. It hasn't done its drying thing yet. So I'm going in a bit more gentle. And I'm going to see what this Quinacridone Rose looks like. That would give us a very dollhouse purple if we mixed it with blue. But for right now, I just want to see what it does. And the next will be Alizarin Crimson for me. And if you need to see, and the Alizarin Crimson is very similar to that Quinacridone Rose. And when we start mixing these, you're going to see differences or similarities. I actually do have a Ultramarine Violet here. I want that one right in the middle. Also very transparent. Not getting strong pigment off of that one. I could probably rub it a little bit more. The behavior of these colors and how they work and how to use them is what we're learning here. Now I don't have anything else that will go in between blue and violet, so I leave that, and then it comes from blue to yellow, and I'm going to stick my greenest green right in the middle, which is sap green. And then I'm going to look into it from there. I will actually stick my sap green because I know I have some Phalos and Viridian. I'll actually stick my sap green over here by the yellow. Next to the yellow. How much pigment can I get there? Our water and our page come showing through. The more watery it is, the more white of the page shows through. Viridian is slightly bluer. We're going to really wake that one up. I'm going to add more water. Wake up, Viridian. Oh yeah, that's nice. Viridian's coming in here. It's bluer. And then phthalo green. I have a phthalo green. Waking up, phthalo green. Very strong, very vibrant. And I also have, last but not least, a phthalo blue. I didn't use cobalt blue because it's super similar to ultramarine, but I want to see how this phthalo blue works. Now, in order to complete my color wheel, I had to fill in some of the missing colors that were in between the reds and the violets and the blues. You might find that depending on your palette, you may need to mix some of your colors together to complete the color wheel. We're trying to get it nice and even for the exercise which comes next of mixing the opposite sides. But first, go ahead and press that pause button and get yourself some clean water. And let's clean up our palette as well. Okay, grab that brush, and here we want to use the two brushes so we can get two colors interacting. So pick up your one brush and get another brush. And we're going to start with red and green. What happens when we mix red and green? Let's just go right into those. I'll get my Scarlet Lake. I know these are both really prominent colors in my palette. So I load one brush with Scarlet Lake and get a good amount of water, wake that up. I'm gonna put some of it down and I'm gonna save and hold on to that brush. Let's get our other brush going with the Phthalo Green. Phthalo Green is a very blue green, but we're just seeing how these colors work together. Now, when you want to make, this is all gonna come into play later on when we're doing, let's say, a piece of fruit, which will be the next lesson. And when you want to make a color darker, you don't add black. Black will, if you just add black to your color to make it darker, it'll give you a very drab, darker, whatever color you're trying to make. What you do is you add the complementary color. So I'm gonna start with the red side and take up just a little bit of green. And you can see, and I want it to be sort of just a darker red, and I do this by adding green. And I'm gonna come in here, because I'm on the red side, I'm gonna start to sort of just make the mark, see what that looks like. And I'm thinking about going toward our phthalo green. And anytime I need some more of the color, I can use the brush and pick it up. And my red is bleeding in, but that's okay because we want to make our red a little darker. So more green. Let's see, we're coming to the red side of a darker red by adding green. It's really amazing. Once you know this about complementary colors, it'll open up everything because it makes the darker color a beautiful shade. Not, you know, black. Black is actually on a blue spectrum. But here, I'm just getting that on just to see what it does. Now I'm going to go, that looks pretty neutral, but I'm going to go in with a little more green. Need a bit of more water. I'm going to get a lot of this green pigment, get it on there so I can mix. You can always go right into your green if you don't mind cleaning your palette later. You don't have to use two brushes. But I want this to still kind of be red, but I'm going to try to get it into the blackish brown, neutral gray is what it is. But it is still on the red side. We're not quite at neutral gray, but you see how lovely. And it just basically makes brown. We're going a little bit farther in with some more red, but a lot of green. Trying to get to the neutral place. I still see it's a bit red. But that's okay because we're just experimenting. And right in the middle is where I want it to be the most neutral gray, which I haven't achieved that. But I'm going to keep going on the green side. So I'm going to rinse this red brush. And then I'm going to get and pick up more of my Scarlet Lake red. So I can get myself a mixable red blob on there. I kind of just unload my brush onto it. And here's my green. Here's my green brush. I'm going to get plenty of green on my palette for mixing. But I'm using the brush that has green on it, and I'm dipping the red. And I can use this over here too. And I want to see what happens to my green when adding red. And this one's going to go right here. So you see, I'm working with a bit darker, and that made that really rich and really lovely green. Just a little bit of red will change everything. Let's go with the next darkest, and I have to make them kind of smaller. And then I'm going to try to get as much red as I can into this green to try to get toward the middle. And this is just for me, for my sampling purposes. Let's do 2 different colors. So again, no black. When we want to make a color darker, let's say we're doing an apple next week, and we want to make it darker, we are going to think complementary colors. And by doing this exercise, you're going to be set up to get a really nice experience when we start to do our actual still life. I'm going to choose now blue and orange. Blue, orange complements. I've got a lot of pigment it's a fresh pigment right from the tube, so it needs less water. I have my clean water for dipping for this purpose, for non-contamination. I liked, you know, I do like to keep my colors uncontaminated. Some people don't mind, and I think at the beginning you should try to keep them separate, but you get to learn what they do and you get to learn how they work and how you can achieve colors, and then you can just go crazy. I have to actually get Ultramarine Blue. I'm gonna load this brush with Ultramarine Blue. Get a lot of that, use some water. I don't want to get my clean water too blue, but a touch won't hurt it. Get a good little blue so that I can mix. Okay, here into our orange. And it might turn out a little green. You're going to have to adjust if, see, now that looks pretty good. Doesn't look too green. If my orange isn't red enough, it'll look green. So I'm going toward the blue, just darkening my orange a little, taking up more blue. If I wanted to adjust, and again, this is why we're doing this sample, if I feel like it looks too green, I add a little red. I can go in and add a little bit of red, make my orange oranger, because you're trying to go right down the middle of the road here. Now, how close this is where you can really learn how close you can get to neutral gray, which is not easy. For our blue, I'm gonna take the blue brush and see what I'm achieving here is a darker ultramarine blue. You see that? And that is how it would be achieved. And the more orange I add, the darker it gets. And it gets to a point where it's going towards gray. And however yours turns out, you just want to experiment. You just want to see what's going to happen. Keep going with every color that you have. I'm going to do all of these. And we're actually next, I want you to do purple or violet and yellow. This one is actually the most challenging because we're dealing with a difference in the value. The purple that you have might be a lot darker than yellow, and that's a value issue. But the concept is there. It will work, but it is a little bit more challenging. So let's give it a try. And to get my yellow on the larger brush, because I know it's going to be less prominent, I'm actually going to do this Naples Yellow. I know that one's actually pretty strong. It has a good pigment. It's very dense, and opaque means there's more pigment. Transparent means there's less pigment and you can see through it. So I'm going to use Naples on one brush and the Ultraviolet on another. This ultraviolet it's not going to be too challenging because it has a transparency to it. Okay, let's start with our yellow. Just take up a little bit of ultraviolet. That is a darker yellow. Gives it just a bit of darkness more. Boy, my ultraviolet is not strong at all. So I'm learning that. It is actually pretty weak. So more ultraviolet is needed to darken my yellow. And again, if I felt like I was going a little bit to the green side, which it isn't, it's actually going very gray. But that is essentially our darkened yellow. I want to do just a bit more. Try to get a darkest yellow dot here. That's really good in gray. That's amazing. It's good to experiment with that. Now on our violet side, our purple side, we're going to just start taking up a little bit of yellow to make our purple look darker. We're over here. And you see it, sometimes you can't even tell until you put it down next to the previous color, and then you go, oh, that does look darker. And I'm just trying to add little bits, and this really, because this Naples is prominent, this really does want to go right to a neutral gray. And I like that because it gives me, if I were to do something, I were to see a color in something that I was painting and I need a gray color, I can actually mix these. It's much better than using blue or black and white. We don't even have white in watercolor. We have to use just our paper. So we have these colors plus our paper to create the effect that we want. I'm going to continue going. I would love to see what happens with Quinacridone Rose and then Viridian. Let's see what happens there. I'm going to give these brushes a good cleaning first. I'm happy so far with what I'm getting. I haven't gotten anywhere near neutral gray, but that's okay because I'm kind of more interested in what's happening on the sides that the color we're using is doing. If I were making a lemon, I would be more interested in how the yellow works and how it gets darker than getting toward neutral gray. So, yeah, let's do our Quinacridone Rose. Load brush. Nice and... I'm running out of space too. I may have to stop and clean the palette, but that's okay. I can tell right now this is a little watery, transparent, but I'll get a good amount, as much as I can on there. And then it will be with Viridian. We will try a Viridian mix. Quinacridone Rose and Viridian. And Viridian's kind of weak too, so these two are going to probably really work well together. But there's only one way to find out. And that's to try it. It almost looks purple. Viridian's got a lot of blue in it. We're right up here in Quinacridone. I'm pretty sure this is Quinacridone. It does look very purple. Quinacridone will give you a purple. And I think I've got way too much water too, but again, I'm just experimenting. Yeah, so now we know. Viridian and Quinacridone go very purple, don't they? More Viridian. They're both slightly transparent. Neither one of them are real dominating pigment. And if I try to get the most Quinacridone rosy side, I'm still getting purple. But let's try on the Viridian side, just with a bit of the rose. I don't get very much tint there at all. I don't get very much darkening. A little bit though. I'm adding more rose. I'm gonna have to probably get some more rose to add. And I can use what's on my brush. Definitely don't get anywhere near gray here. But that's getting toward a nice cool gray right there. Keep working at this, but I want to move on to do something just a little bit fun. We want to keep the experimentation going, so get yourself a clean page. Use your paws get yourself cleaned. Set this one aside and finish it up. If you want to do every little, I want you to do this multiple times. As with all of our exercises, just repeat it, do it again and again until you're happy with it. Keep experimenting. It's crucial and vital. And you know, it might seem like it's kind of a waste, but it's not. It's so not. Moving right along, we're going to be working now with something called a wash. We're getting larger areas of our page involved with color and water. You may want to use tape or your block. Before this, use your biggest brush, the biggest one you can find or that you have. And I'm using this brush because I know it holds a lot of water, because I want to use tons of water here. Now choose any color, any two complementary colors. Refer to your color wheel, any two that you want. My choice will be the Phthalo Blue, and this, we've got lots of water, more water, more water. The point of a wash, it is exactly how it sounds. You're trying to lay down big masses of color, and we're going to do this also while experimenting with our complementary colors. So, and it doesn't have to be too dark. What's the complementary to blue is orange. I'm going to use another big brush. You can just give it a rinse, but for time's sake, using another quite substantial one that holds a lot of water can be quicker. And I'm going to get Cadmium Orange. It's blue and orange. This brush doesn't hold as much water. So I realized that, and I've just really got to do some dipping and get it onto the palette. If you're experiencing that, then just keep dipping into your water. Okay, start with one side, a big area, orange on one side, blue on the other. And they're going to come in the middle. And this is like, imagine you're doing sky or something. So now let's try to get them to meet in the middle and hopefully not look too green. And we're experimenting with large spaces, big, go right across your page and just see what happens. Now, and I'm going to leave it at that. I might want to play around with it. I want to see what happens with the orange. You're seeing how these are interacting as if it's a sample that gets you trained, that gets you learning about how they work. And I think they look beautiful. Complementary colors, they do just that. They complement each other. And they give a vibe, a vibrance. When they're next to each other, they just sing and ring. And this can be really fun. And what I want you to do is do this with every color. And I really wanted you to just look and see what's happening. And I want you to do it with all of the colors that you have. Pick this up, do it tomorrow and the next day, and do it for a whole week, just little bits at a time, so you can just keep learning about what's happening. We're also learning like the paper that we're using with this wash. With this wash, you're going to be testing the paper that you're using too, and how it reacts to having lots and lots of water added to it. I'm going to do a couple more colors with you, but I will, again, continue this throughout your entire week. The next ones I'm looking at, I'm going to do a violet, and opposite of violet is yellow. So we're going to come in here, and I'm not going to touch the blue. And I'm going to get that going on one side, and it's going to be purple and then yellow. And I've got to freshen up these brushes before I can go into yellow. I felt like I needed fresh water. So at any point, if that happens, use your paws, get yourself freshened up. That was too dirty for my liking because the yellow is delicate. I don't want to contaminate my yellow too much. But I'm going to use this cad yellow. This is just testing. And I'm going to get some of that over here. So my idea was to make a violet-y purple. Again, don't touch what's above. But I'm trying to get something that I'm happy with and then go in between. So let's see what happens. I'm just going to play around. And let the water have fun. You know, it feels really exciting in a way. I'm on a mission to make myself a better violet purple. And you're doing this along with me, so your choices could be different. Just stick with it. I feel like this rose could work for me if I could just master it. Because I see it has a good vibrant color, but the next thing is getting the right blue in there, maybe. Switching brushes. Maybe I choose a different blue. Ultramarine is my own old standby, but no, maybe the cobalt then, maybe? If I can make that work. Ooh, lovely, love it. A little bit plum. Too blue. I have too much blue on that brush. This is my pink brush. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You just sampling. For a test purposes. Okay. Keep going, do all the colors. I'm going to do one more row here with you. Choosing something cool. Choosing red and green. And maybe too, we think about complements. And we're going to test all those, but if after you're done with those, you want to keep going, test out what happens with other two colors that aren't complementary. But we're going to go red and green here. Just seeing what would happen. What would happen if I needed to do... The middle goes brown, unless we had more green. Washes behave in a way, and if you did it on a flat surface, if you're doing it on a flat surface, it's even different. Use up all your paper and get some more. Anyway, this is super, super cool. I could do this all day. One little tip and trick, don't ever leave your brush in the water. The water can kind of ruin what's happening with your brush and the connection here to your handle and everything. So don't ever just leave it sitting there in water. When you're cleaning, get your rinse as good as you can. Then set it out of the water, set it aside, find a jar to put it in or something. So that's it for today. Now next week I need you to do a little setup and a little prep because we want to get a piece of fruit to do. We're going to be using everything we learned over the last couple lessons, and we are going to do an actual object. So prep a little for next week and see if you have some fruit you can get before you start the lesson. Keep working hard, keep practicing and experimenting. Have a good week.